everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you an art journal page in a very old art journal that was the very first one that I ever made using a cereal box and various types of paper. This art journal went around the world in an art journal swap, and so it has some pages in it that are done by other artists, and then it has some pages that I did after it returned, and it's a journal about nature. So I wanted to talk a little bit about prep here because I haven't been talking about this type of stuff. I've just been skipping it because I figure you all know it, but I've got some new people who've been commenting and subscribing that are very new to mixed media and art journaling. So I wanted to talk to you about, first of all, how you can make a book like this. And I'm going to link right here in the iCard above that you can click me making one of these. It's not this specific one, but it is made exactly the same way as this one was. So you can learn how to make your own art journal. And then I want to talk about how to prepare your pages. In this case, I used a lot of different types of papers in this book. On the left side is manila cardstock, and on the right side is a lighter weight watercolor paper, which is, I believe, 90 or 80 pound. So I'm going to prepare this page in order to make both sides have the same type of surface, and to seal the paper I used white gesso, and I put that on with a flat 1-inch brush. Gesso is a surface prep. It's an acrylic and it has some sandy stuff in it that's tooth, which gives your paint and other things that you're going to be putting on the page something to stick to. Also, I put a piece of masking tape down the center of my page before I put the gesso on, and that helps any wet medium not sink through the book. This is a stitched together book, and so it has holes in the pages where the stitching has gone through, and that would be the case as if you made a junk journal out of any type of a stitched book. It's a good idea to put washi tape or masking tape down the center to protect the other pages. I also have put deli paper in between the pages that are adjacent to this, and then folded that under and clipped it down with bulldog clips. So that's all stuff that someone new might want to know about. Art journaling is a great way to record your ideas and thoughts about what you're thinking about that day in a visual format. You can also write on it if you want to. And also a great way to practice anything that you don't feel comfortable with. You know, mixed media ideas that you haven't tried yet. You can do it in your art journal, and then you're not like wasting a huge canvas or something. So to apply some color to my background, I started out with a 2-inch brayer, which is a way that I like to apply paint a lot. This is heavy body paint, which I like the little squeeze bottles from Dina Wakely because I can get just a little bit of paint. And I'm using a 6-inch gel plate as a paint palette. I like to do that with my brayer. But because of the large ditch in the middle of this page, I switched to a old gift card, a plastic card. You can use an old credit card, an old hotel key card, and I scraped on the paint with that instead. And then another thing that I really like to do to create interest in my backgrounds is to use stencils. I have some new stencils from Stencilgirl, which I am in love with. And of course, in the description box below are all the links to these stencils as well as all the other products that I used so that you can find them out there in the internets. That first one I used is called Ancient Roots. And then this one is Dangling Pods. When you're using a stencil, you don't have to use the whole stencil. You don't have to even use the stencil in the way that it was intended. You just look at the design and you decide what it is. It's dangling pods, obviously, but when you turn it upside down, this stencil looks like a desert plant to me. So that's the way that I used it, was to make kind of cactusy looking plants. This page was inspired by the quails in my backyard. In the spring and in the summer, which is now monsoon season, I get a lot of animals in my backyard, and my studio window overlooks it. And the quails have been out there a lot lately. They like to come and get a drink out of the pool. And there's always a male daddy quail that stands up on the top of the fence and looks out at everyone to make sure that his little family that then comes in through the gate is safe. And he's watching for predators, he's watching for evil humans, and also things like coyotes and predatory birds, things like that. So I just love the quails. I think that they're so, I don't know, they're comical with that funny little droopy thing on the top of their head. I don't know what that thing's called, but I don't know. The male will just get up there and he's looking around, he's strutting, and he's kind of got a big chest that's puffed up. Anyway, that was what inspired this page. So I was using desert colors in the background. One of those Dina Wakely paints is named Sedona, which is such a desert name. That's, about the rocks in Sedona, which are uh, iron-filled sandstone. So I started with that color, and then I'm using some of the other colors that coordinate with it from the Dina Wakely line to make kind of a desert colored background. And then I used the olive and the lime and the evergreen to make plants. And then, of course, I'll put my quail in the front. And that color scheme is very, very much what my surroundings look like. So to make my puffy little quail, I'm using a piece of deli paper. This is something that I cannot do without in mixed media. I need it. It is the translucency and weight of tissue paper, but it is strong. It's designed to wrap sandwiches or fish sticks or things in a restaurant, and I buy it in the 12 by 12 flat sheets. And a way that I like to collage, which is something that I really, really like in mixed media and in art journaling, this is something that I do all the time. I, I like to draw my figure. Now, if you can't draw, that's fine. You could use a stamp, you could use a stencil, you could use a kid's coloring book page and trace over it, or just use the coloring book page. You don't have to be able to draw to make great art. And everyone needs to remember that. Of course, just because you say you can't draw does not mean that you actually can't. It just takes practice. I didn't used to be able to draw anything. And I practiced. I thought about what shapes make up things. Like if you're looking at a quail, it's got kind of a round, and then it's got kind of a rectangle, and then another round on the top. So the body's round, the head's round, and then the tail is a rectangle. And when I started drawing, that's how I drew. I would draw the basic form shapes that make up something. You know, a tree has a long rectangle, and then it has a round thing or a triangular thing at the top. And when you start to train your brain to look at stuff like that, you find drawing much easier. So that's my recommendation for homework, is to just look around at stuff like what shape are things made out of. It's something that you just train your brain to do. It's like connecting your eyes to a certain part of your brain. And once you can do that, then you can draw. It just takes a little bit of practice, and the idea that you feel that you can. I hope everyone does, because it's fun and it's a nice addition to your art journaling and mixed media, but it absolutely is not necessary, 100% necessary to do this. So I've drawn my quail onto the deli paper, and this deli paper holds up to ridiculous amounts of abuse. So I can collage little pieces of paper on top of it, and I'm tearing up these paper. They're gel prints and painty papers that I have, tearing them up, putting the colors in the places that they should go on the quail, because I know that predominantly a quail is kind of a gray, and then it has a white spot on its chest, and then it has a black spot below that. It's got this one section that's like red and black and white dotty feathers, and then of course on the top it has that red cap, and then the black mask on its face, and that funny droopy black thing. I know there's different types of quails. These are the quail that we have in our backyard. And I would tell you what the name of the quail is if I had it in my brain as I'm doing this, but I don't. So if you want to, I can look it up for you, and you can leave me a comment below and I'll look it up. So I'm continuing to collage these little tiny bits of paper onto my deli paper using Liquitex matte gel medium. This is what I recommend unless you are going to be using things like napkins to collage. Napkins and very, very lightweight tissue paper like the kind that goes inside a package. Those things collage better with a fluid medium. I like matte medium because I don't like things to be shiny. I don't want anything obscured by a glare that you might get from the medium. The only time that I use a gloss medium is if I'm doing very sparkly stuff like shimmery paints or glitter, things like that. Those things will be dulled by a matte medium and you'll lose all your shimmer and you'll be like, hey, I just tried to get all that shimmer and then it's all gone. Why? It's because matte medium means matte. It makes everything matte. So I really prefer it. Some people like gloss medium, but I'm very much into matte medium and rarely use gloss. Matte medium is acrylic paint with no pigment in it, basically, is what it is. So it makes a great glue for gluing things down. I don't use Mod Podge because Mod Podge over time yellows. It changes color, so I prefer an actual acrylic medium, which, you know, if you want your stuff to yellow eventually, and you don't care about that, if it's in an art journal, then the Mod Podge is a little bit cheaper than matte medium. I also sometimes use a permanent glue stick for certain types of things like magazine cutout pages. So I set aside my quail to dry, and then I am adding a little bit of detail using a scribble stick from the Dina Wakely line as well. She has sticks, water-soluble sticks, that are kind of like a crayon that are in the same colors as her paints. But I didn't use this color paint, but I am using this stick. It's kind of a brown. And I'm just going around some of my plant shapes and adding kind of like a scribbly, dark shadow illustration line around them. Just to make it seem more defined, make my plants seem more defined. And then I did use the lime to kind of color in some of my circular shapes that were open. And then now I'm turning over my deli paper and cutting out my quail. You need a good set of scissors that can cut close things if you're going to be collaging. It's just kind of a needed thing. And I like these ones that have a Teflon coating. Well, those particular ones don't, but I do have a pair that I normally use that have a Teflon coating on the blades so that they don't stick to the medium if it's not quite dry. So because I used the deli paper for my collage, I can see the lines through on the back side and I can cut out my shape. And this is a method or technique that I haven't seen anyone else do. It's just me. But because the deli paper is so thin, it doesn't matter that it's sandwiched in between the background and the foreground. So I can easily make a shape and cut it out rather than collaging it right onto the page, which you have to be a lot more careful around the edges. So there's my quail standing in the desert scene, and I decide because I've collaged the quail, I need some collage on the other side of the page. So I'm using some scrap papers, gel prints, cutting out some shapes quickly and collaging those on to make a few more plants and just kind of fill up the scene. It's very easy for me to think about what shapes plants are too because I look at them all the time. This one is kind of like a century plant or an agave plant. It has these narrow at the bottom, getting wider, and then narrow at the top, shaped leaves that come out of the ground like that. I add some more dirt to kind of make something for my quail to stand on that's the same color basically. It's a rusty gel print, rusty colored gel print, and these are all on deli paper. I do most of my gel printing these days on deli paper or text weight paper because those things are easy to collage. Doing it onto cardstock or heavier papers, they're thick and they're hard to collage, so I rarely do that anymore since I use most of my gel prints in some form of collage. So here's a taller, same structured type plant. Just still attaching those with the Liquitex matte gel formula, matte medium. I use this one most. I should buy it by the gallon, I swear. I go through these little bottles so fast. But I like having a little bottle that can sit on my desk, and if I had a gallon, it wouldn't be able to sit on my desk. I guess I could refill the small bottle with the gallon. It would probably be more cost effective. This piece has had some shapes cut out of it before, and I kind of used those previous shapes, which were obviously leaves, to kind of fill in this leaf and give it a little bit of interest. Turned out pretty cool. Just trying to use up this piece. Something that I do recommend is that if you put a color, if you introduce a new color somewhere on your page, you need to put it in more than one place. And that's what happened with this particular piece. It has a lot of teal blue in the print. And so I needed to put it in multiple places because that color definitely was not on the page before I attached that first piece of it. So I spread it around through the whole composition. So then, finishing up, I'm going to use, this isn't really dry, and my heat tool is broken, and so I am needing to not use a heat tool right now to speed up my process. So I am going to use something that won't get clogged. If you're going over a kind of wet surface that has matte medium on it, you don't want to use a marker because that gets into the tip of the marker and ruins it, and then you've just lost your marker because it's now got glue in it and it's all gummed up and won't work anymore. So using something like a Stabilo All pencil, which is a highly water reactive pencil, and then a water brush works great to add in a little bit more detailing and shadows. This one is black, and so I'm doing this treatment, putting the pencil on and then blending it with a water brush. This is a brush that has water in the handle, in just the foreground, just the things that are in the foreground, still just leaving the background the way it is. And then my final touch is to add a little bit of white using a white Posca pen. This is an acrylic paint pen that writes over anything basically, because it's acrylic paint and then it dries quickly. I needed a little bit of white on my quail because it does actually have white on it that I didn't put on there. So also bringing out his face a little bit with the white because he has that black mask around his face. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a thumbs up. If you have comments or questions, you can leave those in the comment section below the video, and I will be sure to answer you. And if you haven't subscribed, there's lots of videos on my channel, getting close to 500 videos that you can watch to learn a little bit more about the processes that I go through when I do mixed media, collage, art journaling, mixed media canvases, and other projects. So I hope that you've enjoyed this, and thanks for watching. That's it for me. Bye-bye.